Detective Dillinger, what do you do for a living?
I'm a detective with the Queen City Police Department.
And you said you're a detective. What sorts of crimes do you investigate?
I'm part of the Major Crimes Unit, and you see what we do at MCU, we investigate crimes involving violence, serious injury, things of that nature.
Now, how do you go about investigating those crimes?
Usually I'm dispatched to the crime scene just like our regular patrol officers are. But at that point, I usually try to start identifying suspects, collecting evidence, things of that nature.
Now, how do you go about identifying a suspect?
I look for physical evidence at the scene, DNA, fingerprints, any accounts I can get from bystanders, eyewitnesses, things of that, standard stuff that you would expect a detective to do at a crime scene.
And after that suspect is identified, what happens?
At that point, once we identify a suspect, we try to bring them in the station. If we have enough collected evidence, we'll file formal charges, put the person in custody, and I send all my findings to you guys, and you guys take over this side of things.
Now, Detective Dillinger, we've heard about those investigations. Can you tell the members of the jury, how are you involved in this case?
I was the lead detective on Tammy Eigenbrot burning, so I handled that case. I was dispatched to the scene on July 20th. I remember getting the call of arson.
You said you were dispatched to the scene. What did you do that night when you arrived at the scene?
When I got there, there was already, our first responders were already on the scene, fire trucks, they were already patrolling there.
So you said fire trucks were already at the home. What did you do?
Well, I decided to patrol the area. I figured, this fire was pretty fresh, suspect couldn't be gone far, and so since they had things under control there, I didn't want to let them get away if I didn't have to.
Now, why at that point did you feel you were able to identify a suspect?
We got that 911 call from the dispatcher. We've got a great dispatch department, and she told me that this was Megan Eigenbrot's home, and that Joshua Wallace could be a main suspect based on what we heard from Megan Eigenbrot.
Now, were you at any point able to locate Joshua Wallace on that night?
Yep, I did. I was able to locate him that night.
Where was that?
I picked him up near the intersection of Delaware Boulevard and Little Texas Road. When I found him, that's where it was, which is pretty close to the house.
Your Honor, may the record reflect I'm approaching opposing counsel with what has been previously marked as Prosecution Exhibit 17?
Yes.
May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Detective, can you tell members of the jury, what did I just see?
This is looks like an aerial photo map. You can see Miss Eigenbrot's house, the crime scene, and then also the intersection of North Texas and Delaware, where I apprehended Mr. Wallace.
Now, does that map fairly and accurately depict that area as it appeared on July 20th?
Yeah, it's an aerial photo.
Has it been changed or altered in any way?
No, not that I can tell.
Your Honor, at this time the prosecution would move to enter Prosecution Exhibit 17, the map into evidence.
Any objection to Exhibit 17?
No, Your Honor.
All right, without objection, states Exhibit 17 will be entered into evidence.
Now, Detective Dillinger, the jury's going to get to look at that map, but could you tell us, what are we looking at on that map? There are indicator marks on there. Can you explain to us what those are for?
Yeah, so you can see the crime scene again, 918 Spring Street. Looks like that's indicated by the red star. They've got the neighboring 915 Spring Street right next door, and then there's a yellow star that indicates the location of apprehension.
Now, you said that there was a roadway adjacent to Miss Eigenbrot's home. How can a person access that roadway from the Eigenbrot home?
It's just a neighborhood. It's a cul-de-sac, so there's just kind of one road in with a car and one road out.
And other than that road, are there any ways to get from her home to that roadway?
Well, not by car, but there is, through the course of my investigation, I discovered a discrete footpath that led from Miss Eigenbrock's backyard to the intersection of those two roads, which is where I apprehended Mr. Wallace.
Now, when you located the defendant, where was he in relation to the end of that path that you just described?
I will say it's about 100 yards away from that path, so it's no coincidence that I picked him up that close to that footpath that leads right to her backyard.
Now, you said you identified that footpath during your investigation. Did you find anything while investigating that path?
Like on the path?
Yes.
Yeah, there were, again, several indicators that pointed back to Mr. Wallace. There were Coke bottles along the path, found several empty steel reserve beer cans that had clearly been drinking. Those were pretty close to the backyard, looked like somebody was maybe drinking them in the backyard.
You just mentioned those beer cans. Why were those significant?
Well,
Objection, Your Honor. This witness has not been qualified as an expert. He's about to give opinion testimony.
Any response?
Your Honor, at this point, the detective is testifying about certain items of evidence he located during his investigation and what role those played during his investigation. Although he's not an expert, he is a law enforcement officer who is qualified to testify about the steps he took in investigating this crime.
Anything else?
Your Honor, I think this is, Your Honor, this is still opinion testimony, regardless of whether he used this as a tool in his investigation. Unless he's qualified as an expert, it is inadmissible opinion testimony.
Are you saying that a police officer can't testify as to what the significance of a piece of evidence was that he recovered at the scene?
Yes. Just gonna go with that. Yes.
I'm going to overrule that objection. You can continue.
Yes, Your Honor. You said you found steel reserve beer cans on that footpath. Were those significant during your investigation?
well, yes, absolutely. I mean, like I said, it looked like somebody had been drinking them in the backyard of the crime scene. And then when I apprehended Mr. Wallace, the defendant, that night, and I searched his person, he had a bag, and inside that bag was an empty steel reserve beer can identical to the ones that I located in close proximity to the crime scene, on a path leading away from the crime scene.
And you said that you looked in a bag that Mr. Wallace had. What else did you find in that bag?
Well, he had a flashlight, a lighter, and I can't recall anything else at that time. Most significantly, the lighter. We're dealing with an arson here. He's got a lighter on him. He's got a flashlight to help him get down the foot trail. These are all significant.
You also said that you found Coke bottles on that path. What material were those Coke bottles made of?
Well, they were made of glass, based on the eyewitness accounts from my investigation. We heard a lot of glass shattering and starting fire. So I believe that these Coke bottles, or Coke bottles like it before they were shattered, could have been used to make Molotov cocktails thrown into the windows of the home.
Now, at any point during your investigation, did you find glass inside the home?
During my investigation, I did find several pieces of broken glass in the back bedroom of the Eigenbrock home where the fire began. We heard Miss Eigenbrock talk about the bedroom where it was found. That's where I found the broken glass.
Now, Detective Dillinger, you said you stopped Joshua Wallace on that roadway. How did he appear at that point?
His clothes were tattered, shirt had been ripped, smelled like gasoline. His pants and his shoes were muddy. All consistent with him being on trail. He had scratches on his arms.
Now, at that point, did he provide you with a statement?
Yeah, he did. I put him in the back of the police car, went down to the station, and I questioned him, and he gave a statement about the events of the fire and whether he had anything to do with it.
What did the defendant tell you about what he had to do with that fire?
He claimed to know nothing about it. That made me even more skeptical that he was so adamantly denying this.
Where did the defendant tell you he was that night?
He claims he was at a bar drinking with a friend.
What did he tell you about how he arrived at that bar?
Well, he told me he walked. The night I apprehended him that night, on July 20th, he told me that he walked to and from the bar that night.
You said that was on the night that you arrested him. Did that story ever change?
Well, it did. We executed the arrest warrant on Mr. Wallace. Several days later, he gave another statement in which he said that he got a ride to and from the bar that night. Again, these inconsistencies draw major red flags for me when I'm conducting my investigation.
Now, during that second statement where he said he got a ride to the bar, what, if any, information could he give you about the individuals that he got a ride from?
Absolutely no helpful information at all. Told me one was a girl and one was a man, and that's about it.
What, if any, documentation could he provide you with that he was actually at the bar?
He could. Said he paid in cash.
Now, Detective Dillinger, you said that you located Joshua Wallace and interviewed him. At any point did you go to the crime scene?
I did. I went to the crime scene after the fire was put out and everything, and conducted a thorough investigation, and did find some more helpful stuff after my initial visit to the crime scene that night.
Can you tell the members of the jury, what did the Eigenrod home look like when you arrived?
Oh gosh, I mean, you can only imagine what would happen after a home has been burned to the ground. It's really a pretty gruesome sight.
May the record reflect on approaching opposing counsel with what has been previously marked as prosecution exhibit 21.
Okay.
I should approach the witness. Detective Dillinger, what did I just hand you?
Well, this is a picture of the home. Looks like shortly after the fire.
And does that picture fairly and accurately represent what the home looked like at the time of the fire on July 20th?
Yeah, it did. In fact, it looks like there's still some flames remaining that the fire department hadn't quite put out when they took this photo.
Now, who took that picture?
One of my associate investigators took this picture, but I was there that night and saw the house, and this is what it looked like.
Your Honor, at this time, the prosecution now moves to enter prosecution exhibit 21, the photo of the home into evidence.
Any objection to exhibit 21?
No
All
objection.
right, without objection, states exhibit 21 will be entered into evidence.
Now, Detective Dillinger, you just talked about the home. Where inside the home did you locate Tammy Eigenrod?
She was in her bedroom, or what we understand to be her bedroom.
How did she appear when you found her?
I mean, again, these are some of the harder things I do in my job. They're necessary, but obviously she burned to death. So
May the record reflect on approaching opposing counsel with what has been previously marked as prosecution exhibit 16. Detective Dillinger, what did I just hand you?
this is a picture of the bed that Tammy was on. I guess after the fire, you can see the furniture's been charred. This was the bed in her room. The body has been removed at this point. We're still collecting evidence from the crime scene.
And when was that picture taken?
Again, after the fire, after it was safe for us to go in there. When Queen City FD clears us, we go in and we got a coroner to come and get the body out after all the evidence was collected for that. And then we got some pictures.
And does that picture fairly and accurately represent what that room looked like at the time that you were investigating the home?
Yep, it shows you how bad this fire really was.
Your Honor, the prosecution now moves to enter prosecution exhibit 22 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor.
Alright.
Under Rule 4.3, I believe, this picture will color the jury. It is unfairly prejudicial. It's a graphic image and it does not help the jury in any way in deciding this case. He's already testified to what it is. It's not going to help the jury in determining any valid information of this case by having them see that picture.
Any response?
Yes, Your Honor. Given the time period that this fire took place, it was over a year ago. The members of the jury are not going to be able to go to that home and actually look at the crime scene. The two photographs that we actually have of the home and the room where Miss Tammy Eigenrod passed away are the only evidence that the jury is going to see today that deals with the actual crime scene, what the scene looked like after the fire took place. There is a probative value to these photographs. It's giving the jury an idea of what that crime scene looked like, and it's corroborating the testimony of the detective's actual observations. At this point, there is no prejudicial value to these, and any prejudicial value that there is does not substantially outweigh its probative value.
Anything else from the defense on this?
Yes, sir, I respectfully disagree. The defense, obviously, the prejudicial value absolutely outweighs the probative value of this picture. Again, there is no helpful content of this picture except that it is being used to color the jury in favor of the prosecution. This picture is a picture of the bedroom. It does not help the jury in deciding the guilt or innocence of my client.
Well, the crime charged is arson. Well, it's murder by arson, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And isn't a fire one aspect of?
Yes, Your Honor. However, the picture of the house has already been entered into evidence that the house itself can show the condition that there actually was a fire. This is just a repetitive and prejudicial at this point.
Doesn't the state have to prove the fire is the proximate cause of the death of the victim in this case?
Yes, sir. However, that has been corroborated by Detective Dillinger's testimony already, and it has been we have stipulated to the fact that Tamara died during the fire.
Anything else?
Your Honor, the prosecution would stand on the argument that this photograph corroborates the testimony of the detective. He testified about his eyewitness account of what that room looked like. An essential element that we have to prove today is that a fire occurred at the home and that fire caused the death of Tammy Eigenrod. This photograph both meets those elements and helps the prosecution prove its case and corroborates the eyewitness testimony.
And whose bedroom is this a picture of?
This is of the decedent's bedroom where Tammy Eigenrod died.
That's where the victim was found, I guess. Okay. I'm gonna overrule that objection. Exhibit 21. Is that what it is? 22?
Yes, Your Honor.
Will come into 21?
Or 16, I'm
16.
sorry.
Exhibit 16 will be entered over the defendant's objection.
For preservation purposes, may reflect.
Yes, that you objected.
Can we pause or?
Sure.
Okay, I just think it's a significant point, so I know you want me to say that there's a body on the bed, I don't think it's clear there's a body on the bed.
I just think you said that's where she was found.
Right, because I think we said there's a body on the bed, there's a much stronger fourth degree.
There's a
Oh, absolutely.
regular.
If that was a picture of a charred body, it
Oh,
would never come in.
absolutely.
Okay, alright, well, I just wanna make sure
Yeah.
you're on the same.
Yeah, I noticed you didn't
No, I
say
thought
it.
that was,
Yeah,
I
we-
thought that was clever.
If you want that in, don't say that, because that will exclude it,
Okay.
most likely.
Regardless, it's stipulated that that is a picture of Tamara's burned body. So,
Is it listed? Is that-
That's
use
fine.
that for that objection, don't use that for.
Yeah,
any
that's
other
fine.
evidence.
You don't say it's her body.
It's stipulated because on the exhibit list, it says picture of her burned body.
Right. No, I agree with that. I'm saying you don't need to play up that it's a body, because
Right.
that will exclude it most every time. If it's,
Which makes sense.
if someone's shot in the head, they might let one picture in, but if it's a burned body, like.
You use it that way because you both agreed to the exhibit list.
And I think, pausing for one more second, that y'all might want to try to exclude that in pretrial. Just say, there's a stipulation that she was found, that she died from this, and that she was burned in the bedroom. There's a photograph that shows her burned body. We believe
That's all
that.
these are what they're.
I wrote that down, but
So-
I didn't know that we were doing this
You wanna
today,
write it down as
so I
stipulation?
That's fine.
not really
Okay.
prepared.
Sorry, yeah.
Let's roll. It is in, let's go.
All right.
Okay.
Now, Detective Dillinger, you've talked at length about the fire. What injuries did Tammy Eigenrod exhibit during your investigation?
Well, she died of severe burning and carbon monoxide poisoning due to inhalation. The smoke just got to it. That's the plan, so.
All right, thank you. No further questions.
All right.
And at this time, we'd ask permission to publish exhibits 16, 20, and 21 to the
Yep.
jury.
That is granted. Cross-exam. Are we blowing any of those up?
We talked about doing it for the house or
Okay, we
the
probably,
map, maybe.
we probably need to do it for the diagram
I
of
would
the
like,
house for
I
sure.
thought we were doing the diagram.
I'll get one, I just
Sweet.
wanted to confirm it
Yeah.
before I did it.
I definitely, I want to bring.
She's not
it up.
drawing on it though, right? It's just gonna be a,
Yeah.
If you do it with the house, I would do one of those little ones that you can. hold
yeah,
if you
we
did
can do
anything.
that with like, Colin, we can do them like this big. So
For
they're
that
bigger,
house.
but
Okay.
not
Okay.
like massive. So,
And that might be helpful for the map too.
okay,
Um,
I can get,
it's
write
like
down
a-
those three and I can get them in like this size. So that you
Okay.
can, they're bigger, but they're not.
Right.
Alright.
Honestly, if it's a setup like this, you could even do it with the demonstrative from stand, I don't think it would look bad with a small one, just like.
It'll be a bigger courtroom. It's the Mecklenburg courthouse. We'll get 'em. We got some in there I can show you. You can
All right.
see what I'm talking about. Go ahead.
Detective, the fire was reported around 2 AM, right?
Yes, ma'am, that's when I got the call.
And Josh and Robert Sanders both told you that Josh was at the bar until 2 AM, correct?
Well, that's what he claims.
And the house was over a mile away, right?
Yeah, but I consider that to still be walking distance.
You found Josh walking home, right?
He was walking somewhere, we don't know where exactly he was going.
And when you stopped him, you told him that you were investigating the fire, correct?
Yep, sure did.
He never gave you any trouble, did he?
No, and that was kind of suspicious to me too, it's like, you know, most people are like, oh, fire, gosh. You're like, yeah, sure, I'll go with it.
He consented to you searching him, right?
Yeah,
He was open and honest.
yeah, but it's just, he was so straightforward about the whole thing, it was just, you know, baffling.
He even told you he went to visit his dog when you asked him earlier, right?
Yeah, you know, he was at the crime scene, that's something I didn't even get into with the attorney, he was at the crime scene earlier that day. And that's just another factor I consider in my investigation.
When you searched him, he didn't have much on him, did he?
Cigarettes, lighter, you know, beer cans, stuff like that.
Okay.
Stuff you'd expect a fellow like Mr. Wallace to have on.
But, you didn't find any glass bottles on him? No petrol?
Well, he smelled strongly of gasoline.
Or you know you didn't find any oil?
But I did find a gasoline can at the scene.
But you didn't find anything on him?
Well, no, I imagine he got rid of that pretty quick.
You didn't find a bottle stop or a cork?
No,
You didn't find anything that would be a component of a Molotov cocktail, did you?
well, the lighter, clothes, the rag, that were, the clothes were ripped, so.
You noticed that his outfit was dirty, correct?
Very dirty, like he'd been running.
But you never asked him how they got that way, did you?
We talked about it, you know, did a few other things, took pictures of the clothes, but he didn't really have an excuse for why they were dirty.
Detective, do you know what Josh does for a living?
He told me he's a landscaper, I figured that's more of a day-to-day thing, you know, with these types like Mr. Wallace.
So he's a landscaper, right?
He cuts grass for a living, yeah.
And you said he smelled of gas, correct?
He did it very strongly.
Being a landscaper, you constantly handle gas-powered machines like lawnmowers, correct?
Yeah, but you know, there's a different type of smell with somebody that just kind of has a faint odor, like they've been working in the yard, and the strong smell of gasoline that I smell on him that night.
It's logical that his clothes would be dirty and covered in mud and gas and grass because he's a lawn man, right?
I mean, we're talking 2 AM in the morning here, so,
Yes or no?
I'm sorry.
Yes or no question. Is it
Well,
logical that he would be covered in dirt and mud and grass and gas being a lawn man?
If he had just gotten off work, then yeah, I'd say it's logical, but at
He
2
told-
AM, I do not think it's logical.
He told you he'd worked earlier that day though, didn't he?
Yeah, but again, you know, earlier that day being 4 o'clock,
You never asked him what time he got off of work, did you?
I mean, you showed me a lawman that works at 10 o'clock at night.
You never asked him if he had changed his clothes from earlier that day either, did you?
Nope.
So you didn't try to find out that those were the clothes he wore to work?
I didn't need to, I had plenty of other evidence that pointed to him.
You asked him to go to the station with you,
Yeah, we went down to the station.
and he went willingly?
He did. I told him he was free to go at any time.
He stayed for 2 hours, didn't he?
Not quite 2 hours.
And after that, you went to the scene of the accident?
I did, yeah, continue the investigation.
And that's when you searched the house next door, correct?
Yeah, the landlord of the house, he let me in the house, I looked around, and I found a gas can by the house, and that's actually the house, I understand, that Josh Wallace lived in before he lived next door, so he would be familiar with that house, familiar enough with the house to know that it might be a good place to stash the gas can.
So you found a gas can in the crawl space,
I
correct?
did,
You tested that gas can for DNA, didn't you?
I did.
But you didn't find any of Josh's DNA, did you?
The test came back and there was no DNA revealed on the gas can,
Well-
unfortunately.
While you were there, you took pictures, didn't you?
I took pictures of the bottles and the steel reserve cans, things like that. You saw some of the pictures of the house.
Okay. And you told me you just said you had plenty of other evidence, right? So, did you bring any of these pictures with you?
Didn't need to.
So, we don't have any of these pictures, right?
You don't need them.
You didn't bring any of the pictures of the bottles?
I mean,
You didn't,
told you about the bottles. Yeah, everybody knows what a Coke bottle looks like.
so we have no evidence or proof that these bottles ever, or cans, or any of the pictures that you took ever even existed,
I mean,
right? Except
They're
your word.
there, they're in my report.
There's no evidence, is there?
Again, yeah, they're there, they're in my report.
Detective, let's talk about what else you learned. You learned from two separate people that Tamara's father was Chad, right?
Yeah, I heard some talk about a guy named Chad being Tammy's father.
You
From what
learned
I
that Chad-
understand, he's kind of out of the picture though.
You learned that Chad had a violent temperament, right?
Objection, relevance.
What is the relevance of this?
Your Honor, this is a case of mistaken identity, just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. This detective did not do a diligent investigation. This is to show that the detective should have followed other leads. However, he blatantly refused to do so.
Anything further on that?
Your Honor, at this point, the detective hasn't testified that he had any other leads other than the defendant, who he found outside of the home smelling like gasoline. Any testimony about this other person who is not even here today or charged with any crime is irrelevant. And further, under Rule 403, the prejudicial effect of this substantially outweighs any probative value that it may have. All it can do is confuse and mislead the jury.
Anything else?
Your Honor, we just laid foundation that he had two people to back this testimony up, that there was another person out there that had a violent temperament. We're about to lay a motive and a foundation for our motive as well. And the prejudicial value is not outweighed at all by the probative value. And controversy, the probative value is vastly outweighs the prejudicial value.
Do you have any evidence of third-party guilt that you're going to present today?
Excuse me, Your Honor, may I discuss with your counsel?
Sure.
Yes, Your Honor, we do. We have the testimony of Saunders, who has personal knowledge and experience with this individual and has seen this individual act violently towards Tamara and her mother, Ms.
Okay.
Eganbrot, excuse me.
Anything further from the state?
Yes, Your Honor, this case is about an arson. We're not dealing with a domestic abuse case or violence towards in a relationship or in a romantic relationship. Therefore, counsel's proffer that the evidence will come in about a violent tendency between two ex-lovers has no probative value today, and allowing it in will be substantially prejudicial, and therefore it should be excluded. And even if the court is inclined to accept counsel's argument that further evidence will come in indicating third-party guilt, we would ask that it only be allowed in under a conditional relevancy rule that if that evidence does not come in, prosecution counsel will be able to renew the objection to the relevance and have that evidence stricken from the record.
Okay. I'm going to overrule that objection at this time, and you may proceed with that line of questioning, and we'll revisit it if we need to.
Yes, sir.
So in the course of your investigation, you learned that Chad, Tamara's father, had a history of violence, correct?
I mean, Mr. Wallace mentioned Chad when I was questioning him. I really thought it was just kind of a move of desperation, really. That's how it appeared to me.
You learned from two people, though, that Chad had a history of violence, correct?
Yeah, later on I did talk to Robert Saunders about that. Those two interviews happened so far apart, it almost, it's kind of hard to connect them. But, Robert Saunders, his person, Mr. Wallace claims to have been at the bar with that night, said that he knew Chad.
You learned that Chad was majorly behind on child support, correct?
I highly doubt the accuracy of that statement. Somebody that far behind on child support probably would have locked up by now.
He had recently been ordered to pay it back, correct?
Again, that's what I'm told. I really don't give much weight to that kind of stuff because it's usually just somebody trying to get out of the mess that they're in.
But you heard from two separate people that Chad had a history of beating Miss Eigenbrock.
I don't know if I would say beating is what they told me. They mentioned he had a history of violence again. I thought they were trying to distract me from my investigation.
But you never followed up on any of that, did you?
Again, I didn't need to. I had the suspect in custody.
You never went to family court to check the files on child support?
Didn't need to.
You never questioned Eigenbrock about Chad?
I'm sorry?
You never questioned Miss Eigenbrock about Chad, did you?
She had been through so much, it wouldn't have been right for me to bring up her ex-husband.
You never asked about any of this abuse, did you?
Again, it wasn't relevant. I didn't need to.
And you never attempted to speak to Chad?
Again, it wasn't relevant. I didn't need to.
You didn't do anything to investigate Chad at all?
Because he wasn't relevant.
Let's talk about some things that you didn't do. Okay, detective? You didn't follow up at Three Monkeys Bar to check Josh's story out.
Yeah, I know the people at Three Monkeys Bar. It's kind of a rough place.
You didn't go and speak to the bartender?
Yeah, I mean.
You never talked to any witnesses?
They know me. They're not going to talk to a police officer at a place like the Three Monkeys.
But you never attempted at all, did you?
I didn't need to. I know the place.
You never talked to any witnesses?
Yeah, when I was working beat, before I became a detective, I would go to Three Monkeys responding to calls for fights and stuff like that. It was crazy. I mean, just you wouldn't believe the kind of stuff I saw there.
You didn't check any security footage from the bar?
Again, from my days as a beat cop, I know there's no security footage there.
You didn't look at security from any of the surrounding areas?
Um,
You didn't try to find any footage to look, you didn't try to find any footage at all, correct?
I mean, there's none there, ma'am.
Never spoke to Chad?
Objection, Your Honor. This has been asked and answered multiple times.
Overruled, but let's move on. Or
You never followed up on any of that information at all, did you?
No, didn't need to.
Because the only person you ever investigated was Josh, right?
Because I had the man in custody, that's right.
But there's nothing that links Josh Wallace to the incident at all, is there?
There's a lot of things, ma'am.
There are no eyewitnesses?
We've got Megan. She was running out of the house.
There's nothing on his person when you searched him, was there?
Beer cans, lighter, ripped clothes, smelled like gasoline, all on his person.
But there was no physical evidence, was there? No
All that's
fingerprints?
physical evidence.
No DNA?
Don't need them.
You don't need them, yet you didn't follow up on any other leads, right?
Because I don't need them.
No further questions.
all right. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Detective Dillinger, the defense counsel just referred to the firebomb as a Molotov cocktail. What are the other names for that?
Yeah, well, a Molotov cocktail is basically, it's a bottle with an accelerant or a type of flammable liquid inside the bottle, gasoline, alcohol, kerosene, diesel fuel, things of that nature. And what they do is they stuff a rag inside of it and light the rag on fire so it burns slow, and then when you throw it and the bottle breaks, flames engulf wherever you throw it. It's referred to as a Molotov cocktail. Other people call it a poor man's hand grenade. We see them a lot with criminal activity.
Defense counsel also just asked you about Mr. Robert Saunders, who came and gave you a statement. When was that statement made?
Yeah, Robert Saunders is a man that Mr. Wallace claims to have been at the Three Monkeys bar with that night. He didn't come forward until almost 3 months after we had arrested Mr. Wallace, and that just that in and of itself was highly suspect. And
When he did come forward, what, if any, contact information did he provide?
he gave us his name, telephone number, street address, things like that. You know, we've got a form that we have to fill out. Somebody comes to the station and makes a statement. So.
And finally, Detective Dillinger, defense counsel asked you a lot about things that you didn't consider during your investigation. Why didn't you consider those specific things?
Well, again, you know, I didn't need to. I had that physical evidence linked in there. I think it's pretty obvious that this is a case of an ex-boyfriend who is upset and inebriated. You know, he's been drinking at a bar, and it's pretty easy to connect the dots, I think.
Yes, no further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Witness